All right, folks, here we go again. It's another one of them episodes of Dawson's Crack. What's Dawson's Crack, you ask? If you haven't figured it out by now, and I got to tell you every single time, even if you have, it is the Dawson's Creek rewatch, first-time watch, podcast/carcast, because we're in a car. And what do? We rewatch every single episode of Dawson's Creek until we physically can't do it anymore. And we are currently on Season 1, Episode 6 of Dawson's Creek, Season 1, Episode 5 of Dawson's Crack. And the episode summary goes as follows. An eavesdropper at Capeside High hears Pacey talking to Dawson about his ongoing fling with Tamara and babbles about it to the entire school. Then Bessie delivers her spawn. Big episode. We have Jen, Dawson, and Joey in the bedroom where we always start it. They're watching TV. The movie ends and Joey says she's got to go because she's got to go hang out with Bessie, her sister. Jen says she feels like a third wheel and that she's invading on their personal ritual. Joey says, yeah, you absolutely are. Yeah, it's kind of our thing, but I still need to leave, blah, 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 blah. They head out, and then there's Dawson laying there on his bed trying to figure out why life's so complicated. So we cut to Bessie and Bodie, Joey's brother-in-law and sister, and there's a little sniping going back and forth. Bodie yells at Joey, basically, for aggravating her very pregnant sister, and he says he's got to go out of town, a little foreshadowing that he's got to go to Hyannisport, I think is what they said, to check out a French restaurant. So after that little bit, we go back to Graham and Jen, who are doing their usual thing where they're sniping at each other. Jen has a calendar on the wall that happens to have nude people in it. Of course, her grandmother, being the religious zealot she is, bitches about the fact that it's a nudie poster, quote, or a nudie calendar, quote unquote. Jen, of course, makes a snide comment about Jesus being naked nailed to a cross. And then they get into it. She yet again brings up the fact that she doesn't believe in a higher power and all that kind of business. Now we cut to the meat and potatoes of the episode. Pacey tells Tamara that they need to do something more in public. Maybe they should go out. They're hanging out together. And he says we should maybe take a weekend, do some real couple stuff. And she points out the obvious fact that she's currently committing a felony by sleeping with a minor. And he says, yeah, but can we have a real relationship that isn't, hidden? And it's like, no, you can't have a real relationship, dude. She's obviously your teacher. You can't be banging each other in public. It's crazy. The whole thing needs to stop. Now we cut to the plot device of the episode. In this case, they're in a washroom, bathroom. Pacey and Dawson are talking about the Tamara situation and how she doesn't want to be seen in public with him, insists on hooking up behind closed doors. That's when Pacey gets slightly paranoid that he's been talking about Tamara in public, and he goes around to all the washrooms, checks under the door in each stall to make sure nobody's in there, because, of course, somebody could be eavesdropping, potentially. He doesn't find any, but, oh, guess what? The stoner, Kenny, is sitting atop a toilet smoking, not letting his feet dangle. So he hears the whole thing, and he is very excited about sharing it with the entire school. That's when we cut to Jen and Dawson talking in the hallway. She brings up the fact that there's this vicious rumor going around Capeside that Pacey's hooking up with Miss Jacobs, and asks if Dawson knows anything about it. Of course, Dawson doesn't want to lie to her, so he says, please don't ask me about that. I can't confirm or deny. So Jen immediately, of course, knows that it's true. And then he immediately has to go find Pacey because he's got to explain to Pacey how he done fucked up and everybody's going to hear about this. It's going to be vicious. Joey rushes over to Dawson and Jen to tell him about the very implausible situation of Pacey hooking up and how it's impossible that he would possibly blow the English teacher and how everybody's upset about it. Now we cut back to a vacant classroom where Dawson and Pacey are talking, and he tells them, hey, Kenny Leverton was in the stall, apparently, and he must have heard about us talking about Tamara, and it's not really a good thing, and everybody's upset. So Dawson explains it to Pacey and says, you control the narrative, and all you got to do is just, be chill, and don't let it get to you, and make everybody think that it's not true. That's when we cut to worst case scenario, where Tamara's in class, she's discussing Romeo and Juliet, and one of the kids in the peanut gallery makes a snarky comment about hooking up. Now we have a nice little positive moment between Joey and Pacey. Pacey's hanging out by the dock that they're always around, moping around. And Joey comes out and basically tells him, I'm sorry about the rumor and it's embarrassing. And she completely understands because obviously her dad's in prison and her mom died and everybody around town talks shit about her. So she totally gets what's going on here. Now, of course, we cut back to Dawson and Jen. They're hanging out. She's bitching about her Graham, and he says, hey, try to find a new positive way to interact with her. Like, you don't have to always be fighting with each other. Now, here comes the big plot point of the episode. Joey goes home, and she sees Bessie outside trying to unstick her truck from the mud. Bessie, of course, explains her that, she's upset. And the reason she's upset is because the car is stuck. She's obviously in labor. The baby's on its way. Joey says, quick, we'll call the ambulance. Well, it turns out they can't call the ambulance because the phone doesn't work. And the closest phone, of course, is Dawson's house. Unfortunately, the only way to get to Dawson's house is the same way Joey gets to Dawson's house all the time. And it's to jump in a rowboat and row over to Dawson's house. So the very pregnant Bessie, who's clearly in labor, jumps in with Joey in the rowboat to row down the canal or the creek. It's Dawson's Creek, so it's a creek, down to where Dawson is. Bessie, of course, at this point is in full panic mode. She's yelling at Joey, calling her names, telling her to hurry up, and that she's rowing too slow. They make another weird snide comment about like Joey rowing like a girl. I'm not really sure what that's supposed to be about, but it continuously happens. And then she says, oh my God, the boat's leaking. And she says, no, that's not the boat leaking. My water burst. Now we pop into Joey bursting into Dawson's house, explaining the situation, telling her that she needs the phone. And he calls for an ambulance, and it turns out the ambulance can't make it there because there's a pile up on the freeway. It's going to be a while. So all that business is going on. We cut back to Pacey and Tamara. Pacey's waiting at Tamara's beach house to try to, talk her down. She's, of course, super pissed because Pacey had the gall to point out the fact that she's committing a crime. Now she's worried about the fact that the school board's going to find out. She snaps at him and basically says, this whole thing only works if you keep your mouth shut, which I'm like, dude, you are not a good person, Tamara. I know Pacey is a dick, but, he's a 15-year-old kid. He's doing the best job he can. You should know better, dude. It's come on, dude. This whole situation, I hate it. It's very clear that theoretically her and Pacey are done, and they're now broken up. It cuts to Bessie full steam ahead in labor, screaming for the ambulance. Of course, standard TV trope. Ambulance can't get there. We need to find somebody who's a nurse that can help because of the situation. And guess who's a nurse? Graham next door. So they're going to go over and get Jen's grandmother to help her out. Well, that's going to get interesting. Because, of course, as we found out in one of the previous episodes, Graham is especially judgmental because they're an interracial couple. And also, she's just kind of nasty. I don't know. She's just not a great person. But she comes out in the clutch, pops over there to help deliver the baby. Then we cut over to Pacey again. And this is kind of a weird scene where, yet again, Pacey and his brother Doug are talking. Remember, Doug is from the hurricane episode, and Doug is a police officer, right? So he attacks Pacey and bitches him out for spreading a rumor about Tamara and saying that it's not true, not even giving a hint of sympathy towards Pacey or even remotely asking him yo, were you taken advantage of? Is there anything you want to talk about? Nope, just immediately blames him for being a douchebag and besmirching Tamara's good name, and it's just dude, Doug, you suck too. And also, don't forget, Doug also pulled a gun on Pacey for calling him a closet case in the last episode in the hurricane situation. So, I don't know, Doug seems like a wildly unhinged ACAB kind of cop that is just not a good person. I don't know. He makes me nervous, for sure. Now we cut back to Dawson and Bessie. He wants to film the birth, which is just, come on, Dawson, you fucking creep. And claims that, it's the only way that we can immortalize this moment. Graham jumps in and basically yells at him, tells him to knock it off, and that her patient needs to, chill out and concentrate on what she's doing. Now we cut back to Pacey again. This time he's at the town hall, and Tamara's there with her lawyer. And her lawyer, of course, tells Pacey that there should be no communicado. Pacey tries to apologize to her and tell her sorry, and I'm like, dude, don't apologize to her. She's the one that molested you, dude. I understand there's this weird Stockholm thing going on, but dude, no, forget her. She is the bad person in this case. So we cut back to Bessie, who's currently in labor. She's having a rough time of it. Things are not going as planned. Cut back to Tamara. And this is essentially your hearing where the school board is telling her that, like, she did a bad thing and her sex romp with Pacey wasn't cool. And that's when Pacey bursts in and he says, no, it never happened. I made it all up. It was something I wish I could have done, but obviously I'm a kid and she's a teacher and that could never work and it's no good. So obviously it never happened. She's cool. So, good for you, Pacey, I guess, in one sense, for keeping her out of trouble. But, like, she clearly is in the wrong here. Like, absolutely not cool. Now we go to Jen, Bessie, Graham, everybody in Dawson's living room. Jen is freaking out because she's seeing too much blood and she doesn't think it's accurate. That's when Graham jumps in and says, dude, mind your business. I don't want you creeping out my patient. And she basically tells Jen to put her feelings aside and pray. They all pray and do their thing, and then the beautiful baby's born. Everybody's super excited about it, but it's really traumatic and horrifying. And it does get done, but not in the way anybody would want to. And while we're working through the last little bit of Bessie's pregnancy situation, we cut back, of course, to now Doug is talking to Tamara, apologizing for how Pacey acted. Tamara shuts Doug down and basically tells him he's a shitbag and mind his business. Then we go back to the beach house where Pacey comes to basically apologize to Tamara, and Tamara tells him it's not necessary. And it's like, yeah, dude, it's not necessary because you're a fucking pedo and you're a creep and you should have put boundaries up and said no. So, of course, it's not okay. And that's when you find out that Tamara's going to move on. She's done with the whole situation and she's going to take off and do her thing somewhere else. You also found out Tamara's supposed to be like 36. So she's 36, he's 15. Not cool. Not even remotely cool. Like if she was 21 and he was 15, still not cool. 36 and 15, ew. Not good. No, moving on. Anyway, we go back to Graham and Jen. They're talking and they have another little moment. And she says, after seeing what you saw, how could you possibly believe there's no God? And Jen says, I don't know, I might have turned a corner, but it's not so much that I believe in God now. I think I'm just going to be a different kind of spiritual person. So maybe we can find a boundary there and come to a compromise. We'll see if that works out. Then we go to Bessie and Bodie, who are cooing over their brand new baby, and they're super excited. Joey's in there as well. And then Pacey strolls on the beach away from Tamara's beach house. And of course, he's sad looking, That's basically the end of the episode. But it's like, dude, a lot of shenanigans went on in this episode. Big reveal, of course, is that Pacey's pedo teacher is no longer going to be in his life. Bessie and Bodie now have their brand new baby, and they're very excited about it. Joey witnessed the entire thing and helped her sister. Jen is still conflicted about her spirituality, but is coming to a truce kind of between Graham and her. So a lot of stuff, a little bit of stuff. The only thing I did think was weird is that Bodie is going to a French restaurant and it's implied that like he's looking for a job interview. So I was under the assumption that him and Bessie own the ice house, which is where Joey works, but maybe they don't own the ice house and he just works there. I don't know. That part is unnecessary, but it is what it is. So that concludes episode 6 of Dawson's Creek, episode 5 of Dawson's Crack. This was a quick one, but we're flying through. We're moving on, and we're going to bust out the next episode real soon.